Hello, my name is Charlotte Pitts, and I welcome you to my presentation on business process improvement from talk to action. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the Larrakia Nation and their elders, past, present, and future, and their land on which I am now standing. My challenge to you today is, what action are you going to take from my presentation and implement in your workplace? Some of you might be wondering why Alpha Beta English Services is making this presentation. So I'm going to do a bit of talking and introducing myself before we get to the action. I have travelled quite widely and worked formally in 3 different countries: South Africa, Vanuatu, Australia. I have also floated around the Mediterranean working on boats and doing a few other things. As I'm passionate about communicating, I've picked up a few languages along the way and can even spell my name in Auslan, Australian Sign Language. What is at the root of my passion to communicate? To learn, to find out more information about everything, especially people. Being able to learn and find out things is very empowering for anyone at a personal and a professional level. Recently, I was chatting to an Asian lady who had been in Australia quite a few years and could barely speak English. She explained that her Australian husband had forbidden her to learn English and have local friends, thus keeping her disempowered. She had since separated from him and was now learning English and making a new life for herself. From my experience, I've realized that the root of many problems and inefficiencies in an organization with a private or public sector can be poor communication, no communication, or miscommunication, all of which can be very damaging, symbolized by the mushroom picture. They keep me in the dark and feed me bull SH1T. Most people in a business, from the top down to the basic worker, can identify a problem. However, without the opportunity to nut it out and communicate in a safe and open way, it remains in the shadows, festering and hindering productivity. Poor communication practices within an organization can create an unhealthy climate of fear, gossiping, office politics, and bullying. Often the know-how of what and how things are being done in a business remains in people's heads and is not communicated and shared to everyone in the form of proper standard operating procedures, SOPs, or other relevant means like sharing technical manuals on an intranet. Many people prefer to hoard their knowledge and what they have learned instead of sharing, believing that this gives them power. Let's look at my apple analogy here. What happens when we share an apple? It's gone forever. Now, what happens when we share ideas? I'd like you to think about some ideas of what you can do with an apple. One thing you can do with an apple or with a few apples. By now you will have listed a couple of things like planting the seeds, making juice. Of course, I was hoping for someone's favorite apple pie recipe. What is the difference between sharing an apple and sharing ideas? You lose the apple, but never the ideas. In fact, one idea usually results in more ideas, and I'm sure you have experienced this before when you've been planning for something. It's crucial for any company, large, small, or solo, to have time to reflect, to be able to brainstorm in a safe environment, to communicate candidly about what works and doesn't work, in order to be open to change and improvement. How many of you have participated in some kind of change management, team building, or strategic planning activity at your workplace? From my experience, I've seen that many organizations, realizing that changes need to be made, have engaged in strategic planning and change management sessions at least once. They might have done this by engaging outside consultants or running a session internally. Personally, I believe the best way to do this is to have an outsider to facilitate the discussions and activities. In this way, everyone in a company can hopefully participate equally and without the stress of having to perform yet again. Also, an outsider has no vested interests and is therefore able to maintain objectivity and neutrality, we hope. If you are a solo business like mine, this activity might not have happened formally. Usually, if you are your own boss, you're probably the worst, unkindest boss you could ever have imagined. You're constantly questioning how you could improve or what you could improve, but maybe you never get to the bottom of it. Before beating yourself up in the process, stop and reflect with me here. In the case of a solo, how about investing in a coach? It does not have to be every day or even every week, just enough to keep you on track and offer an outside opinion. There are many coaches with different specializations. You could even form a small network of solos to discuss and brainstorm. There would probably be quite a few locally where you are. And a group like this can really be very uplifting and supportive. Have a chat with someone for a few minutes. Has anything changed? What changed? And if not, why not? List the main things. Jot down some points. What could be the biggest factor to hinder implementation of any changes? So I'm going to suggest a few things. There could be a reluctance to share knowledge and expertise. There's a fear of mistakes. There's no time, too much work, no idea of where to and how to start, no existing procedures in place, not good at documenting the current workflows, too many deadlines, lack of communication up and down, no mentor, no coach. Just remember, sharing always results in more. What could success look like at a practical level where you work, once everyone has left one of these change or planning sessions with their warm, fuzzy feelings? How do we translate the talk into action and getting things into the light? Notice my mushroom has come into the light. Let's look at some of the ways we can go. Gather the notes. Usually the ideas are on post-it notes, which really are very convenient. Group them into common themes or topics. There will always be common threads and duplications of what has been said. Streamline the content from each topic into one sentence or a paragraph. Prioritize these topics, starting with one being the most important. Remember, it is better to fix one small thing at a time rather than trying to adopt a whole company approach for all the issues and getting nowhere. Choose a starting point. Commit to a starting date. At this point, it might be a good idea to identify an external facilitator to mentor and support the brave person who will start the changes. Encourage open communication in all directions at all times, subject to some basic ground rules. For example, Have regular quick catch-up meetings to discuss progress, always remaining objective. Keep notes, preferably in a shared online workspace. These could be the start of procedures or SOPs to document how things should be done. They need to be living documents. Allow time to implement and experiment with improvements and new ideas and processes. At the same time, setting some timelines. I once read some stories of top innovation companies and how they achieved their successes. One company expected and allowed all their employees to spend at least 15% of their time doing the equivalent of doodling. What a good idea. We all know that the biggest discoveries have often happened by accident. X-rays are an example. Post-it notes invented by 3M were also an accident. There was no use for the glue that didn't stick very well until someone wanted something to mark the hymns in his hymn book and remembered the glue that didn't stick very well. Realize that some of these implementations may actually flop. Use the flops as an opportunity to learn, not blame, through open evaluation and discussion. Evaluate and discuss about why and how the successes happened. Celebrate the successes and improvements by making them known. Remember, often it is the small adjustments that achieve significant improvements. For example, why is there a backlog of quotes waiting to be processed? Splashing out on a new IT system won't necessarily solve the problem if you have not identified it. Is there time-wasting duplication that needs attention? Procedures need to be questioned constantly to see if they are still useful. This might require a log of all time spent on anything during the workday. Once again, people feel threatened and watched if this is not effectively communicated. I once did my own log for 3 months as I was serving different departments, and they were doubting that I was dividing my time equally between them. I know of a workshop which is currently doing this exercise, and people feel uncomfortable. Why? Because of a lack of proper explanations and reassurances. Being interrupted by colleagues to help them can swallow 30 minutes of someone's time, which was supposed to be spent on something on a job card and thus remains unaccounted for. How can I help you to move from talk to action and communicate and implement what you have learned here at OBM or from my presentation? Feel free to contact me. My name is Charlotte. Australian contact number 451111 403. Thank you so much for your attention.